Our trip to Canada this year began with our first stop in Reading to see the famous Sundial Bridge in the Turtle Bay Exploration Park. This bridge spans the Sacramento River and has a support tower which forms an A of 217 feet and points due north at a cantilevered angle, allowing it to serve as the nome of a sundial. The deck surface of this bridge is of translucent glass which glows aquamarine at night. The Sacramento River is the principal river of Northern California and is the largest river in California. Since the 1950s, this watershed has been intensely developed for water supply and the generation of hydroelectric power. Today, large dams impound the river and almost all of its major tributaries. The Sacramento is used heavily for irrigation and serves much of central and southern California through the canals of giant state and federal water projects, while now providing water to over half of California's population and supporting one of the most productive agricultural areas in the nation. These changes have left the Sacramento greatly modified from its natural state and have caused the decline of its. Before we settled down for the night, we took a quick run over to McLeod, which is a small town east of Shasta, where we could get a good picture of the mountain itself. Then back to Shasta, where we settled in for the Strawberry Valley Inn, and we had reservations for that B&B. The next day, we drove up to McKenzie Bridge, Oregon, which is a small area with camping right on the McKenzie River. We set up camp there and stayed there for the next 3 days and really enjoyed the river and the setting. The Mackenzie River is one of Oregon's most beautiful rustic rivers. We were fortunate to have it right in our backyard, so to speak, as we camped. It was a place that Diana knew about and guided us to, and we really enjoyed it for all 3 days. After we broke camp, we returned to Route 5 and went north up through Portland and up to Olympia, where we intersected Route 101 and went alongside the Hood Canal. We stopped for some Hama Hama oysters in one of the special places there. After we got to Port Angeles, we stayed overnight and the next day explored the Olympic National Park and up into Hurricane Ridge, which was really quite an experience. It's a beautiful place to see. It's all rainforest and just gorgeous. After we stayed over again in Port Angeles, the next day we got in line at the port to get the ferry going over to Victoria. It was great fun to watch the ducks and see the ferry unload. When they open the big doors, you're looking at huge trucks and cars, and it's just a very exciting thing to see something that size coming out of the ferry. After we crossed the bay and landed in Victoria, we found our lodging and realized we were on the very top floor and were able to see all the coming and goings of the traffic and the float planes and then the ferries coming in. It was really quite fun. This is one of my favorite scenes, to see the planes leaving and the ferry coming in. When they're on the ground, the planes look pretty good size, and then when you see them up against the ferry, you realize the ferry is really huge. Our room in our building was right next door to Fisherman's Wharf, so we were able to look out and take a short walk next door and see all the activity that goes along with the Fisherman's Wharf. It's great fun to watch these little water taxis. They scoot around and they come out of the Empress, and they serve pretty much the entire bay. We took a ride on one and it was really fun. We decided to take a whale watching tour and got on the boat and went by the sea lions, and it was not the happiest thing in the world for me. Most people were okay, but I really got seasick. Despite the discomfort, I was able to get one shot of a whale as they broke out of the water, but that was all we saw. It was not a very good exercise. The next day, we were able to take a ride around town in an open top bus and got quite a good view of around town and the Land's End of Victoria. We did stop and spend some time walking around this castle. It was built by a Scottish immigrant, Robert Dunsmuir, who made his fortune from Vancouver Island coal. He was considered the richest and most important man in Western Canada at that time. These horse-drawn surreys are around town and they look like a lot of fun. Many people use them for sightseeing. Totem poles are monumental sculptures carved on poles, posts, or pillars with symbols or figures made from large trees, mostly by indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest coast of North America. They are a kinship group. Trade and settlement initially led to the growth of totem pole carving, but government policies and practices of accumulation and assimilation, nearly all totem pole manufacturing had ceased by 1901. We were quite fortunate to have been there during Canada Day. You can see all of the activity, and there's a barge with an orchestra on it, and it's just a great amount of fun. Everybody really enjoyed it and pitched in. The following day, we went out to Butchart Gardens, which is one of the great gardens of the world. It's just a wonderful experience, and you could spend a ton of time there. These gardens began from an idea Jenny Butchart had to beautify the worked-out limestone quarry which had supplied her husband's Portland cement plant. We took a tour around North Vancouver Harbor and really enjoyed the sights. That's a very pretty harbor. There's a great deal going on all the time, it seems. As we left Canada, our first goal was to stop and see the Boeing factory in Everett. Turned out that was not possible. They need at least a 2 day advance in order to get on one of the tours. Our next stop was Oregon City, which is the end of the Oregon Trail. Very well set up, good museum, and very good example of what it took to get across this country on wagons. The next night we spent on the outskirts of Portland, and the next day we went through the grotto, which is a very pretty meditative area. We stumbled on the Swan Island dahlias just by happenstance looking at the map, and what a treat. The flowers, they must supply dahlias to everybody in the countryside. They had them everywhere in all sorts of colors. It was a big treat to go and see all these beautiful, beautiful flowers. When we got to Medford, we stopped in at Harry and David's for a tour of their food processing plant. Here's an example of how moose munch is made and the assembly lines that are all over the place. This is a big operation. They really do it up right.